Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a great comedy show. Please welcome the man who's full of blarney, the world's favourite Irish comedian, Dusty Young.
Hello there. How are you all keeping? How is the crack? Great to see you. Grand, lovely. Let me tell you, if you're going to sit out there all night laughing at me, I'm going home. Hello there, Mick. If I hadn't seen you sitting there, I wouldn't have known it was you. Is this a pleasure trip, or have you brought the wife with you? Now, I have a lot in common with the compere. He's never heard of me, and I've never heard of him. But he's very good to his wife, you know. He never goes home. Yeah, sure, nobody's perfect except the fella my wife could have married. And you know, I think that marriage is like a self-service cafe. Well, you pick what you want, and when you see what your friend has, well, you want some of that as well. So I laugh and the world laughs with you. Fight with the wife and you sleep alone. Do you know, I never knew what it was like to sleep on my own until I got married. Now, I came from a very large family, 7 girls and me, and we all slept in the one bed. And 4 of the girls were bedwetters. You know, I learned to swim before I could walk. My mother used to say to me, which end of the bed do you want to sleep in tonight, love? And I used to say, the shallow end. Now, my late wife, no, she's not dead, she's just always late. I call my wife the leader of the opposition. When we got married, her father promised me 3 acres of land and a cow, and you know, I'm still waiting for the 3 acres. But her mother didn't like me at all. Oh, she hated me, you know. She said she would crawl out of her grave and go back and haunt me, you know. So we had her buried face down. But we left her backside sticking out of the ground, so we'll have somewhere to park the bike. You know, I call my wife Treasure because whenever I bring her out anywhere, everybody says, where'd you dig her up? Now listen, Paddy and Mary had never been blessed with children, so Father Murphy told Paddy to go and light a candle at Lourdes. Well, that year they had triplets, the next year they had twins, and she's 3 months pregnant with twins again. So Father Murphy ran down the other day to congratulate him, and he said to Mary, where's Paddy? Oh, she said, he's gone back to Lourdes to blow out the candle, Father. You know, with all those kids, whenever she washes all the nappies, there's a rainbow round her house. Now, how do you get your wife to listen to you? Talk to somebody else. Oh, God, she was doing the washing the other day and saw his underpants going round in the machine, and she said, that's the only bit of life I've seen in them for years. You know, I've just been reading that drinking and driving is bad for you, so I'm cutting back on the driving. Paddy went to the shoe shop and said, how much is it to sole me shoes? And the man said, £12. He said, how much is it to heel them? He said, that's £4. Paddy said, well, heel them up to the toes then. You know, last week he took his tie back to CNA and said it was too tight. You know, I think if it wasn't for Irish jokes, you'd have no comedians in England at all. This Irish lad went into a shop in London with a parcel under his arm, and the security man said, what's in the parcel? Murphy said, it's me sandwiches. The man said, it's chicken. Murphy said, no, it's turkey. You know, he knew the day he was going to die. A judge told him. God, he gave his wife an awful thump last week and then dragged her down the footpath of the front gate and was lifting up the bin to hit her over the head with it. And the priest went by. He said, now will you go to Mass? Father Murphy was flying to Dublin at 33,000 feet in the Aer Lingus plane And the stewardess asked him if we'd like a drink, and he said, no thanks, too near to headquarters. But he had this bottle of wine, and he said to Paddy sitting next to him, if you'd like a glass. Paddy said, that's very strong wine. Father said, well, that's what the Pope drinks. Paddy said, well, no wonder he falls to the ground whenever he gets off a plane. On the way from Dublin Airport into the city in the taxi, he noticed the cat's eyes on the road and said to the driver, they look like diamonds. The driver said, but it is a dual carriageway. Paddy was at the doctor and said he was having trouble with his waterworks. And the doctor pointed to a bottle on the shelf and said, I want a sample in that bottle. Paddy said, you mean from here? Well, the top of the morning to you all and the rest of the day to yourselves. You know, this place reminds me of home and that needs decorating as well. Murphy was standing at the bus stop in O'Connell Street eating a ham sandwich, and as a woman stood beside him with a little dog, and the dog kept jumping up to get a bit of the sandwich, and Murphy said, do you mind if I throw your dog a bit? Oh, she said no, so he threw the dog 100 yards up O'Connell Street. It was on one of those quiz shows in Ireland, Brain of Ireland I think it was called. The quizmaster said, where's Uganda? He said, he's in Galway with me grandma. He said, now, Columbus sailed around the world 3 times. On which of these trips did he die? I'm not slow down, you'll have to quicken up. Who was Joan of Arc? He said, was it Noah's wife? What would you find in ancient Greece? He said, ancient chips. Name me 3 animals that come from Africa. He said, 3 lions and a giraffe. And he was in the pub afterwards, and there was a football match on the telly, and he said to Mick, what's the score? Mick said, 5-1. He said, who's winning? He said, 5. Paddy said to Mick, the wife's not very well, you know. He said, she thinks she's a bridge. Paddy said, my God, what's come over her? He said, 3 lorries and a bus. He had a new pacemaker fitted, you know, and he thinks it's Japanese because every time he sneezes, the garage door flies open. His wife's an awful cook. She was going to make a rabbit pie for dinner last Sunday, and she went to the butcher's and asked for a humpback rabbit to keep the pastry up. That's stupid, isn't it? Can I ask you a question? How do you spot an Irishman at the Wailing Wall? Well, he's the one with the harpoon. This big American was walking down O'Connell Street, and Murphy was digging holes in the footpath, and 2 minutes later Casey was coming and filling them back in again. The American said to Murphy, I don't understand it. Murphy said, well, the fellow who plants the trees is not in today. Had he come from a very posh part of Dublin, even the Salvation Army band has a string section. But you know, English people keep telling the Irish how clever they are. They've got a post office and it's got 200 planes, 400 trains and trucks collecting mail from all over the world, and they've got a high-tech machine in London that could sort out 500,000 letters every 25 minutes, and then they give it to a fella on a bike. Murphy was very mean. Last night he said to his wife, I'm going out to the pub for the drink. Put on your coat. She said, am I coming with you? He said, no, I'm turning off the heating. Now, I've been very happily married for 6 years, which is not bad out of 23. Paddy went into a shop in Dublin and said, can I have Schindler's List, please? And the man said, this is a fish and chip shop. We don't sell videos. Went in the next day and said, can I have Apollo 13? Brooke said, I told you yesterday, this is a fish and chip shop. We don't sell videos. Went in the next day, he said, I told you this was a fish shop. He said, all right, give me a bag of chips. And a fish called Wanda. Now, Mary said to Bridie, what do you think of red china? She said, it'll go very well with a yellow tablecloth. Paddy said to Mick, my wife was run off with my best friend, whoever he is, and I miss him. Mick said to his wife at breakfast the other day, tell me the truth, Bridie, in bed last night, did you fake it? And she said, no, I really was asleep. He took her out for a meal in a restaurant in Dublin last week, and this woman came in and sat down at the table next to them, and she had frog's legs and chicken breasts, but a nice-looking face. The new priest in the parish had his bike stolen and didn't know what to do. So the old parish priest said, well, next Sunday at Mass, during the sermon, go through the 10 Commandments. And when you get to the one that says, thou shalt not steal, you look for the guilty face in the crowd. And he went back after Mass the following Sunday, and the old priest says, well, did it work? He said, well, no, I only got as far as thou shalt not commit adultery, and I remembered where I parked my bike. Paddy's son said last week, Dad, I got half a mind to get married. His father said, well, that's all you need. Paddy came out of the restaurant the other day and he stood on the footpath for a few minutes to say goodbye to his friends. And this priest said, if you want to stand there, you'll have to move on. Now, Paddy was on the boat going home to Ireland last week, and it was very rough, and he got really drunk. And when he was walking around the deck for some fresh air, he was sick all over this man sitting on the steps. And it was very quick. He woke up and said, do you feel better now? This fella fell overboard off the ship, and the captain says, throw him a buoy. And Murphy threw a 6-year-old over the side. The captain said, I meant a cork boy. Murphy said, well, I didn't know what part of Ireland it came from. Paddy said to Mick, do you want to buy a pair of shoes, 7 and 6? And he bought them. He said, Paddy, these shoes are odd ones. He said, yes, that's 7 and that's 6. Paddy said to Mick, last night I had this great dream. He said, I dreamt that Nick Fowler come round to the house and invited me out to play golf with him, and I beat him. He said, well, that's strange. Last night I dreamt that Pamela Anderson and Dolly Parton came round to my house and wanted to go to bed with me. But I couldn't manage the two of them on my own, and I had to send them away. Paddy says, you old Egypt. Well, didn't you give me a shout? He said, I did, but you were out playing golf with Nick Fowler. Oh, that's grand. Murphy said to the boss, the shovels haven't arrived yet. And the boss said, well, tell the men they'll have to lean on each other till they come. Mick was trying on his new wellies and said to Paddy, they don't feel right. Paddy said, you've got them on the wrong feet. Mick said, these are the only feet I've got. I put on a lot of weight, you know. I used to be 7 pound 4 ounces. I've got on what's called a seafood diet. If I see food, I eat it. Now, my wife, she went on a diet of bananas and nuts. She didn't lose much weight, but you want to see her climb trees. Are you the boss at your house? Well, last night my wife came crawling to me on her hands and knees and said, come out from under the bed, you coward. I see Murphy is having an affair with that blonde one out of ABBA. Bjorn, I think his name is. No, he's not really queer. He only helps them out when they're busy. Now, Murphy's had a new telephone fitted, but he's keeping the old one for wrong numbers. He thought he should spend more time with his son, so he became a prison warder. Listen, I forgot to tell you. They have a new chocolate in Ireland now, and you lick it off your partner's body. So everybody can say, the Milky Bars are on me. This man stopped Paddy in the street and says, is there a C and A in Dublin? Paddy said, no, it's spelled D-U-B-L-I-N. He died very peacefully in his sleep, you know. The passengers weren't very happy. You see, he was a helicopter pilot and it got too cold, so he switched off the fan. The granny got the pill off the doctor, and I found it in the kitchen last night, crushing it up and sniffing it up her nose. I said, Granny, you take the pill with water. She said, at my age, it's all in your head, she said. You know, everybody's taking drugs these days. The nearest we got the drugs when we were kids was Cenepods. Oh, they had the same effect. You still went on a trip, only quicker. You remember them? Listen, Father Murphy was walking down O'Connell Street, and this girl said, do you fancy a quickie for a fiver? He was very embarrassed. So when he got back home, he rang the convent and said to the Mother Superior, he said, what's a quickie? She said, a fiver, same as Dublin. I was in Belfast the other week. Now, Belfast is not twinned with anywhere, but they have a suicide pact with Sarajevo. And I went into this rough pub in Belfast, and you know, it was rough. Even the arms of the chairs were tattooed. It's the only time I've seen a darts match go to injury time. God, my brother's making a fortune there. He's got a balaclava factory. Very mean, though, you know. He was playing dominoes the other night, and he was afraid to knock in case the waiter came over. Mick rang Paddy the other night, and this strange person answered and said, you have the wrong number. And Paddy said, well, why did you answer the phone then? He answered the phone in bed the other night, and after a couple of seconds pause, he said, no, he said, you want the Coast Guard's office. That's why I said, who the hell was that? He always said, some fella wanted to know if the coast was clear. Paddy said to me, could you lend me a fiver? He said, I've only got £1. That's all right, you can owe me 4. And Paddy said to the doctor, it's very strange. If I lie on my right side in bed, I can see the green grass at home. And if I turn on my left side, I can see the lilac. He said, you've got the Tom Jones virus. It's not unusual. Paddy took out his sandwiches at work and said to me, cheese again. God, I hate cheese. I've had cheese on my sandwiches every day this week, and I'm sick of it. Mick said, tell your wife to put something else in the sandwiches. Paddy said, I make my own sandwiches. Now, Paddy was selling his car, and Mick said, there's no chance of selling that car. There's over 100,000 miles in the clock. You'll have trouble selling that. Look, clock it back to about 10,000, you'll get shut of it quick. The next week he said, have you sold the car? He said, no, I'm not selling a car with that low mileage on it. The foreman said to Paddy on the building site, what would you want to paint an 80-foot chimney? He said, an 80-foot brush. Now, this is me first time here. Well, since the last time I was here. Because if you weren't here, then you wouldn't have known that I didn't come anyway. And if you hadn't been here, well, you wouldn't see me coming, because I wasn't here. Oh, I went to one of those clubs the other night. Oh, God, one of those gay liberation places. Oh, God, they did the gay gardens. Then they had a Quaker dance. That's twice around the floor and outside for your oats. Now, I think if God had wanted queers, he would have made Adam and Paddy. Paddy said to Mary, I don't think I'll go to work today. He said, it's too foggy. Mary said, I can see right across the top of them houses. Paddy said, well, I don't go to work that way. Oh, she said some funny things. Her cat ran up the drive one day, out the gate and across the road, and a lorry missed her by about 2 or 3 inches. She said, if that cat had been a dog, it would have been a dead duck. Well, it's lovely to be with you again. I can tell you there's a sign in the toilet that says wet paint. Now, it's not an instruction. Now, you probably guessed I was born in Dublin because, well, I wanted to be near my mother. My father was a simple man and my mother was a simple woman, and I'm a simpleton. We have any people in from Kerry? Well, this will be all new to you, electric lights and curtains. How do you save a Kerry man from drowning? You take your foot off his head. Come here, till I tell you. Do you know, Murphy was so thick he tried to book the Red Arrows for a darts match. He saw an advert in his paper the other week for sale, inflatable dartboard. Listen to this. Mary went down to the police station to report that her husband had gone missing from home. And the policeman said, well, can I have his description? She said, well, he's 6'3" with long blonde hair and blue eyes. Her little son said, Mammy, me daddy doesn't look like that. She said, who the hell wants him back? I don't know what they call the Irish tick. When we get unemployment and recessions, we can go to England. I was coming in the door tonight and the fella said, could I tap you for a fiver? I said, for a fiver, you could hit me with a cricket bat. Murphy went to the doctor and said, every time I drink a cup of tea, I get a sharp pain in my eye. He said, have you tried taking the spoon out of the cup? Do you have trouble passing water? He said, no, but I get very dizzy going over the bridge. Do you know, he hasn't got a hair in his head. I told him to put a rabbit up his nose and that would chase the hairs out. It's like a billiard ball in his head. He uses that new shampoo, Shoulders, it's called. Do you know, I was going through Dublin Airport the other week and I saw a sign that said, toilets out of order, please use the ground floor. I nearly got arrested for flashing. I rang the manager for details of the night show and his secretary Mary said he's not in this morning. So I rang the next day and said, is he in? She said, he's not in this morning either. I said, doesn't he work in the morning? She said, no, it's the afternoons he doesn't work. The mornings he doesn't come in. No, he is the most boring person in the whole world. He makes Ken Barlow sound interesting. I shook hands with him tonight when I came in and my whole right side went numb. He was telling me he just finished his first novel. It took him 3 days to read it. But you know something? I don't like doctors, you know. All the patients are sick. I asked my doctor the other day for something for my liver. He gave me a pound of onions. You know, he examined me and said, well, there's not much wrong with you. I said, well, there was when I made the appointment. Do you know when I was a lad, my mother dropped me on my head, and if she dropped me twice, I could have been a solicitor. Murphy's Thrills, you know, they just named the new soup after him in Ireland, Thick Country Vegetable. He's so thick, even his wisdom teeth are retarded. He got stopped the other morning at 3 o'clock going home in the car, and the cop said he was doing it for speeding. And he said to the cop, but I'm going to a lecture. The cop said, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, you can't be going to a lecture. He said, you've never met my wife, have you? I was in a pub in Dublin the other week. I was watching an old film on the television, Flash Gordon. Do you remember him? He's 75 now, you know. They just called him Gordon. Paddy went into a Chinese restaurant the other day and he called the waiter over and he was scratching his bum. He said, have you got hemorrhoids? And the waiter said, no, only what's on the menu. Oh, he was funny, Paddy. The manager rang him from the bank the other day and said, you're £500 overdrawn. What are you going to do about it? Paddy said, well, was I overdrawn last month? The manager said, no, in fact, you were 1,000 in credit. And Paddy said, did I ring you? Oh, the chef in the restaurant has a black belt in cooking, one shop and you're dead. Paddy was walking home to the pub last night. He was so drunk he was walking like an MFI wardrobe. And his wife, oh, she's ugly. You wouldn't be late for work in the morning if you were married to her. Paddy said, Mary, I'm 14 stone of pure dynamite. She says, yes, with a 2-inch fuse. Murphy got invited to a Nassau House party the other day, and you had to bring your own dope, so he brought Casey. Paddy was having a drink in the pub the other night with Father O'Toole. He said, when I see these young girls standing in the bar in tight jeans and short skirts, I get awful bad thoughts. Is that a sin? He said, no. It doesn't matter where you get your appetite as long as you have your dinner at home. Paddy said, I just got a new coat for the wife. Mick said, that's not a bad swap. She sent her little son Seamus into the butcher's to ask for a sheep's head, and she said, ask him to leave the eyes in and it'll see us through the week. Murphy told Casey he was thinking of stopping the flashing, but he said, I might stick it out for another few months. One day the postman knocked at Murphy's door and Seamus opened the door. He said, is your daddy in? He said, no, he went out when my mother came in. He said, is your mother in? He said, no, she went out when my brother came in. He said, is your brother in? He said, no, he went out when I came in. The postman said, are you in charge of the house? He says, this is the lavatory, the house is over there. Mary's husband died and she went down to the newspaper office to put his death note in the paper. And she said, I'm trying to keep the cost down. Just put, Murphy is dead. The man said, well, you get 6 words for a £5. Oh, in that case, put Murphy is dead, tractor for sale. Little Seamus said to his mother, does God live in our bathroom? His mother said, of course not. Why? Well, every morning Daddy says, God, are you still in there? The teacher one day said to Seamus in school, she said, where is God? He ran out of the class and home screaming to his mother. What's wrong? She said, God is missing and they're blaming me for it. He came home once and found his wife in bed crying. He said, what's wrong? She said, we've had a burglar. He said, did he get anything? She said, yes, I thought it was you. The judge said to Murphy, why did you hit your wife with the chair? He said, I couldn't lift the settee. But we've got lovely songs in Ireland as well. My father used to sing the song Maggie to my mother every night before they went to bed, and she'd get very emotional and cry because her name was Bridie. Do you know, his car was very old. He took her down to the garage one day for an oil change, and the mechanic said, you'd be better keeping the oil and changing the car. My wife was funny. She told him last week she wanted to make love to her in the kitchen. She wanted to boil an egg. She likes them runny. But don't parents say the funniest things to their kids? You know, my father used to say to me years ago when he was 9, who do you think you are? I mean, if he didn't know who I was, what chance did I have? Then he'd say, do you know who you're talking to? Paddy said to his little Jewish friend one day, he said, our priest knows more than your rabbi. He said, I'm not surprised, you tell him everything. Paddy said to Mick, what's the difference between BSE and PMT? He said, well, one is a mad cow disease and the other is some sort of agricultural problem. The landlord said to Paddy, I'm going to raise your rent. And Paddy said, well, good, because I haven't been able to raise it myself. He once got a final demand from the Inland Revenue with big red letters saying, final demand. He said, thank God I won't be getting any more of these then. Paddy had an awful accident at work the other week, you know. He ran over 15 Pakistanis in a steamroller. The foreman said he was the first man to lay tarmac and put the cat's eyes in at the same time. We've only got one Pakistani in Dublin. He owns a shop, but he's not a real Pakistani. He closes at 5:30. Airie's gone back to night school to learn Braille so she can read to her blind sister. I was in India last year, and the cultures are so different over there, you know. When you commit adultery in India, you get stoned. In Ireland, it's the exact opposite. You know, I think if those Indians put something in their curry on Friday night, they could take over the whole world on Saturday morning. I was at the niece's wedding last week, and the brother who was father of the bride had to do the speech. He said, I'd like to thank you all for coming at such short notice. And I'd like to get my hands on the little prat who sent the pram to the church marked urgent. My daughter did not have to get married. She could have waited another 3 weeks. You know, I don't know what to do without my wife if I had a chance. We've been married 21 years and I don't remember breaking 3 mirrors. I said to her the other day, what do you want for your birthday this year? She said, the widow's pension. I asked the priest what I owed him for the service, and he said to me, well, give me what you think your daughter's worth. So I gave him £1. And then he looked at my daughter and gave me 75 pence change. But I would like to mention the caterers, because that salmon wasn't caught. It gave itself up. And who's ever heard of soup in a basket? That new chef is good. I think he's Italian. He's called E. coli. Can you explain something to me? How come when you open the tin of evaporated milk, the milk is always there? The groom thinks he's a wit. Well, he's half right. I love going to Blackpool. I once stayed in a 4-star hotel. It was 2 minutes from the sea. I think they meant by telephone. Listen to this. Murphy and Casey got a taxi from the Blackpool airport to the hotel. When they got to the hotel, it was £4.50 on the metre. And the taxi lad said, well, I'll round it off to an even fiver. Murphy said, you're getting £4.50 off me and not another penny. Casey said, and that's all you're getting off me as well. They were on the beach the next day, and Murphy said to the fella with the donkeys, he said, can you hire these donkeys? Oh yes sir, there's a little screw under the saddle. Murphy ended up in court one day for doing a streak along the beach, and the solicitor said to the judge, well, you can't send him to prison, he's got 14 children to bring up. The judge said, case is dismissed, the man wasn't streaking, he was in his working clothes. He said to Paddy he had an awful headache. Paddy said, well, have you taken nothing for it? He said, no, I've took nothing. He said, well, take a couple of aspirin. He said, no, I saw an advert in the paper today. It said, nothing acts faster than anything. He's so thick, other Irish people tell jokes about him. 2 lads in the pub in Belfast making letter bombs. Paddy said, Mick, I've got some gunpowder left over. What'll I do with it? He said, open up the envelopes and put a bit more in each of them. He said, if I do that, they'll blow up in my face. He said, no, they're not addressed to you. See, George Best has gone into football manager now. He's taken over Real Madrid. I had a meal in a restaurant the other day. I ordered crab, and the waiter brought the crab over, and it only had one leg. I said, what happened to his other leg? He said, he's been in a fight. I said, well, take him back and bring me the winner. Listen, you won't believe this. Murphy bought a new car and was going to insure it, third-party fire and theft. I said, don't be stupid. Who's going to steal a burning car? And he said to Vic, do you know the Everly brothers are in the bar? Vic said, the real Everly brothers? He said, no, one's heavily into drugs and the other's heavily into drink. Paddy said to Mick, if Little Miss Muffet married Saddam Hussein, would the Kurds get their way? Murphy went into a shop in Dublin last week to buy a book on karate, but he picked up a book on karaoke by mistake. And on his way home he got bugged. But he managed to get out 2 verses of the Laney's donkey before they beat him up. He bought a pair of trainers in the shop in Dublin last week and he noticed there was no lace holes in one of them, and he complained to the manager and he said, let me have a look. He said, oh, I see what's wrong. Look at the label, it says Taiwan. He went into a shop in Dublin and said to the girl, can I have a duvet, please? And the girl says, duck down. So he stooped down and says, can I have a duvet, please? He was trying to give up smoking and got those patches off the doctor, but he crashed his car last week. It's very difficult to drive with a patch over one eye. He took his wife out for a meal last week in a very expensive French restaurant, and he ordered a whole meal in French, and he brought him back a deck chair covered in custard. But you know, ladies and gentlemen, there are no strangers in Ireland. There's only friends you haven't met yet. It's very important to be nice, but it's more important to be nice. And never build up your self-importance, because you're never that important, and the size of your funeral will depend on the weather. This little girl went to the dentist in Dublin to have a tooth taken out, and she said to the dentist, I think I'd rather have a baby. He said, will you make your mind up before I tilt the chair? I flew to England the other week on this plane. It was so old, when they took away the steps, it fell on its side. And the pilot was blind. I said to the hostess, how can he fly when he's blind? She said, well, all planes fly on instruments today. I said, but how does he know when he gets to the end of the runway? And she said, well, being blind, he's got a very keen sense of smell and hearing. So when he hears the passengers going, Holy Mother of God, he takes off. Can you tell me why they put frosted glass in the toilets of aeroplanes? I mean, who's going to look in at 33,000 feet? Murphy took his dog to the flea circus and it stole the show. His wife said, Paddy, if you have another drink, I'll leave you. He said, well, I'll drink to that. And you know, all you hear about these days is safe sex. In Ireland, safe sex was not giving the girl your name and address. Murphy's mother sent him 3 socks because he told her that since he came to England, he'd grown another foot. When he was 7, his parents moved to Dublin, and you know, it took him 3 years to find him. Oh, listen, you know, I got stung by a bee today. Aye, £4.50 for a jar of honey. It was Murphy's honey, the best honey in Ireland. He says his bees get to the park at 6 o'clock in the morning and get the flowers when they're at their freshest, and that's why his honey is the best. Well, I think he's lying. The parks don't open till 9 o'clock. Paddy said to me, what do you put in your rhubarb? He says, manure. Paddy said, we put custard on ours, he said. Nick said to the girl in the bakery shop, who's been forging my signature on the hot cross buns? I brought little Murphy with me tonight. He's a magic leprechaun. Whenever he feels like it, he can turn into a bar. No, the other week he turned his wife and family into a 3-piece suite. And they had to go to the hospital. And he rang up and said, "How are they?" And the doctor said, "Oh, they're very comfortable." He walked into a bar last night and got hurt. It was an iron bar. Paddy's just lost 12 stone of ugly fat. He got divorced from his wife. God, she was ugly. If God had seen her, there would have been another commandment. In fact, she has teeth like the 10 Commandments, all broken. I must tell you, folks, that my act always has a happy ending. Aye, everybody's very happy when I'm finished. Paddy went to Murphy's farm, and there was a pig in the yard with only 3 legs. He said to Murphy, "That's a strange pig." Murphy said, "That is the cleverest pig in the whole of Ireland." And our Seamus fell down the well. He stayed honking for hours to attract our attention. And the house went on fire. He came up the stairs and got us all out of bed before we got trapped. And he said, "Well, why has he only got 3 legs?" And Murphy said, "When you have a pig as clever as that, you don't eat it all at once." Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed your evening here with me. Until the next time we meet, take care of yourselves. Good night, good luck, and God bless you all. Bye-bye.